So on today's episode of The Undercurrent, we are going to be talking about money everywhere, but not a drop to drink, because it is all currently stuck inside one big AI bubble. If it bursts, it is not the billionaires who are going to drown. They will just keep on floating along like Glinda. While small businesses and hard-working people just trying to get by in the world and maybe fighting for a bit of justice will be crushed by the metaphorical tornado debris. Are you on the inside or the outside of the AI bubble? And what can you do about it? Or is it all just invisible mechanical wizardry and we just need to regulate the hype? If you know me, then you know it's probably the latter. The Undercurrent is all about going under the headlines to see what's going on in the world of real people. Those of us who probably actually will be impacted by financial downturns. Because when the macroscopic hyperbole makes us feel powerless, that is the time to reflect, to go inwards, find internal and community power, and keep on doing what you're doing. And do it well. In this video, I want to cover what you, as founders, as technologists, as individuals, as thoughtful people, might want to think about when we're thinking about this potential crash that comes from an AI bubble. Is AI really a promise that won't be fulfilled? Or is that just more scaremongering made to make us feel even more powerless? If you don't know me yet, I'm Dr. Becky Sage. I have decades of experience working with tech founders, technologists, even running my own tech businesses. And my goal is to help people to realize the promise of innovation. I really do believe in us as humans to be innovators, to drive towards progress, including technological progress. But I think we need to be doing it in a responsible way that doesn't damage people or the planet. Now, this AI bubble is a topic that has come up for a little while now, and I don't know about you, but I have been bombarded by it. Maybe it's just the social media bubble that I am in. I have listened to lots of videos, podcasts, read a lot, and I have to say, the more I've looked at it, the more I've realized there's a whole lot of nothing being said here, with tiny little bits of somethings.
Is the AI bubble about to pop?
AI bubble is a bubble.
You're absolutely in an AI bubble now.
Why are we spending hundreds of billions of dollars on AI infrastructure? Ah, damn it, I'm gonna have to talk to some nerd about this, aren't I?
Is the AI bubble popping?
Now, there are lots of topics about concern, and I think we are right to look at concerns, but I also think that we can be optimistic and we can carve out our own paths towards a better future. I want to also be really clear from the start that this video is not one about the general topic of AI. I have to say it's taken me a long time to get this video pulled together because it is hard to disconnect all of the different aspects of the emergence of AI, what that means, of big tech, of the markets, of impacts of bubbles bursting, and everything else that sits around that. There's a lot of things that we could potentially talk about, and the reality is we will talk about that in future episodes of The Undercurrent, but I want to try and stay relatively focused today. I'm not going to focus specifically on AI replacing jobs. I am not going to focus specifically on data centers, although they are kind of central to this AI bubble argument. I actually want to focus on what you might be able to do, and hopefully putting you at ease a little bit if you're also getting a little bit of that anxiety around all of this talk of the AI bubble. When it comes to data centers, they are being built and they are going to be here. The question is, how are they going to be used? And how do we build them in such a way that doesn't destroy our environments? So, let's just think about this whole picture at the moment. We have big tech CEOs and their supporters on one side, and they seem to be ignoring all of the potential human and environmental impacts of AI.
Because the amount of adoption, the amount of consumption of AI has gone up exponentially. And so the pressure is high to deliver on the expectations of our customers, and we don't want to let them down.
They're doing a lot of hyping, obviously, and they're doing this because a lot of their businesses are built off the back of that hype. Then we go to the other side, and we have a lot of people saying AI is a scam. It's really just being used to hold up this I can't even say that word. Bro and oligarchy when it comes together. Broligarchy. That's all that AI is, that there is nothing that sits underneath that.
AI, as it is deployed in the United States, is a scam.
And then we got a whole bunch of other people who are just ignoring the whole thing, maybe having a bit of fun on Nano Banana and using AI for some content creation, but not really understanding that we are at the cusp of a major transition right now. But the reality sits somewhere in the middle of all of this. AI is not a scam. There are some very real, very helpful applications. It is also currently being very inflated, and specific applications of it are being incredibly overinflated. And you can also have some of your own agency in the AI economy. Tech founders and technologists building AI and applications that use AI are not all these terrible villains who are just working for their own agenda. In fact, many of the people I work with really care about the applications and the communities that they're going to serve with those applications. And I'm not ready to write off all of those positive applications just because some people are not building AI responsibly. Now, before we jump into everything else, I really want to say something that is such a bugbear of mine. I want to make sure that we all know that AI is not just OpenAI or ChatGPT or just Claude or just AI agents or just the chatbots, basically. AI goes so far beyond that, and applications of AI have been being built way beyond that for many years now. So I just want to make sure we're shifting away from that mindset. Not to say that OpenAI aren't part of this bubble and this hype, because they certainly are. And the nuance lies in responsible usage of AI for specific applications. Now, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang said, "Every industry needs it, every company uses it, and every nation needs to build it." Just because he leads the biggest company in the world, who is benefiting and will continue to benefit from AI, that doesn't mean that he's wrong in what he's saying there. Does every industry need it? Well, we've proven in the past that it didn't, but in the world we're currently in, and because of the way we consume different technologies for different applications, then probably to remain competitive, yes, different fields are going to need it. Certainly there are applications across every industry. Every company uses it. We'd be hard pressed at this point, I think, to find companies that don't use any AI at all. And every nation needs to build it. I have definitely grown up embodying the principle of globalization, and God, I don't want to go into talking about open borders and immigration and that kind of thing at the moment, because this isn't a political thing right now. But all I'm saying is that I feel very connected to people all around the world. But what's becoming increasingly clear is that national sovereignty, or at least regional sovereignty, is something, and security is going to be something that's incredibly important as regulation comes in, especially around data usage, but also just around resource usage. If we're building data centers that are using lots of resource, every nation is going to have their own stance on AI. I'm actually really interested to see how that evolves, and I'm keen to make sure that people have a voice in terms of how that evolves. I've also heard lots of people say that AI is just not going to get used across industries, and it's like, it already is, and it's 2026. I saw this being used across industries 10 years ago, so maybe not in exactly the same way, and maybe not with such powerful tools, but it absolutely is. It absolutely is already happening. So for people to say that it's not going to be used, I think is just burying your head in the sand, and that is not going to help anybody. The McKinsey report that came out has somewhat backed up the idea that AI is not going to be used as much, because this report said that there were lots of projects being done with AI tools, but that they weren't necessarily yielding very helpful results. So a lot of the AI investment wasn't really working yet. Now again, I think that this is a massive misconception about what AI is and how it can get used, because they were really just talking about the kind of AI tools and projects that were coming in for enterprise solutions, chatbots, those kind of generic solutions. Number one, those tools will evolve anyway, but also there are so many other deep tech applications that AI is being used in. It's not just those media hyped areas that people are currently talking about. Before I jump into the rest of this video, I want to remind you that if there's anything that you want me to talk about, or if there's anything in this video that you think is interesting and you want me to delve deeper into, please let me know in the comments or in my DMs. You can find me over on Instagram at Dr. Becky Sage. So let's talk about this big tech bubble, this AI bubble that we're talking about right now. What we're hearing the media say is that the current bubble that exists is built on the promise of AI. And I mean, we've seen AI dominate over the last year. And the question is, will that promise be realized? Or will our skepticism because of the AI slop and the damage to the environment get so bad before we can actually see those positive impacts of AI? So let's just very, very quickly talk about the AI bubble. What is it? So it's really all been built around the idea that the Magnificent Seven companies are dominating the S&P.
We can correlate these two things, stocks and AI, because, and this is crazy, more than a third of stock value on America's main stock index, the S&P 500, comes from just 7 tech companies, all heavily invested in AI.
And in fact, there's a lot of talk that says the US economy wouldn't be held up, or in fact, it would only be growing by 0.1% if it wasn't for all of these big tech companies. And you're like, okay, fine, yeah, AI is dominating. That's what happens in economic markets, right? We have certain trends, we have certain areas that dominate. But the problem is that within these companies, one of the things that's happening is that there are a lot of circular deals that are getting made.
Intel, AMD and Nvidia are the companies that design the chips that power the AI models. OpenAI and xAI and other smaller players are the companies that buy these chips. Then you have Oracle and CoreWeave. These are the data centers who also buy these chips, then lease out the computing power to the AI companies. Think of them like the middlemen. At first glance, nothing seems out of the ordinary, but once you look at how these companies actually work together, the red flags start jumping out. It started when investors and Microsoft gave OpenAI $58 billion in funding. OpenAI then paid that back to Microsoft to use their data centers. Microsoft then used that money to buy Nvidia chips. Nvidia then invested that back into OpenAI. Doing this allows each company to record that flow as revenue.
And the one that gets talked about the most is the one between Nvidia, Oracle, and OpenAI.
And this has only been getting crazier recently, with OpenAI announcing a deal worth $300 billion with Oracle. After this, Oracle said they would spend tens of billions on Nvidia chips. Then Nvidia agreed to invest up to $100 billion back into OpenAI.
So it's all very circular, and the current prediction is that Nvidia, which is valued as the biggest company in the world, which saw major growth last year, approximately 15% of their income has been through these circular deals. So they're kind of boosting the rest of the economy by providing the infrastructure that's required, but also providing them with the money required to buy that infrastructure, with the idea that in the future, all of this investment's going to pay off. So they're building out the infrastructure now, they're paying for that infrastructure now, so that when these companies really start to make a revenue, that money's all going to come back. And the big question that's being asked is there a magical AI future that's going to get realized that's then going to justify this current spending? So it's kind of a similar conversation that you'd have across any investment markets, right? You're looking towards the future, you're speculating in a particular area, but in this case they're speculating on a few companies in a particular space. The thing is Nvidia going to die if OpenAI doesn't survive? I don't think so. But there is definitely concern that all of these circular deals are holding up that economy. They're not based off anything that is real. It can only hold itself up for so long. And so there is a lot of analysis going on focused on whether or not that bubble's going to burst and what that means for investors in the stock market. And for those of you who are like, yeah, we're in the UK, well, a lot of UK pension funds are invested into the S&P, so they could be directly impacted if there is a crash. But there are other reports that say that we might be more protected here in the UK. We haven't overinvested in the AI space. We don't overinvest in anything in the UK, certainly not in startup investments. And also there is some talk that there could be benefits right now because we're talking about this bubble. Investors are then looking to diversify their investments away from just the American stock markets and into places like the UK. You can tell from these circular deals that there is definitely hype happening at the moment, probably overinflation happening within the tech sector and the AI sector. And that does put economies at risk. But what I've also heard is because we are already talking about it, adjustments are starting to be made, which could actually just regulate those markets a little bit more and perhaps mean that there's not such a devastating crash along the way. And I think as individuals or as founders, we can do things that do make us more resilient, whether or not this bubble ends up bursting. So how might we be part of this recalibration? First of all, I think that what we need to do is focus on reality, not fantasy. And I know that probably your Elon Musks and your Sam Altmans would say, but no, you have to have those big visions to grow something big. Well, that's what's leading to this overinflation in the first place. They come from a very, very different background from the majority of us. The Silicon Valley way is a very, very different approach from many of the approaches around the rest of the world. That has created a lot of wealth for some people, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily the only way to do things. And in fact, it's not always the best way to do things. So these companies all grow off what we call like hyper blitzscaling. So lots and lots and lots of money is put into them just on the promise of the big stories. And all of the big AI companies that came out of the US required this type of funding because they all required brute force in the technology they were building. They worked on building trillions of parameters, making up models that are powered by massive GPU clusters. It's all bigger, 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 as much data as you can possibly get and generate as much information. ChatGPT has always been searching for this AGI, artificial general intelligence, the idea that basically artificial intelligence can just do everything and anything. Now, even in China, the developers cannot get the kind of funding that US companies would get. And this is why DeepSeek is actually quite a different approach from some of the other models that were built. Much more refined, a lot more work done on the quality of the algorithms rather than just how much you can feed it. I mean, DeepSeek is still an incredibly hungry animal, but the future may not be in just these massive models. And like I said, the reality is, certainly any of the companies that work where I work, the kind of money that we have floating around here in the UK, we cannot blitzscale companies in the same way as they do coming out of Silicon Valley. Now, there has been talk about the bifurcation between winners and losers in the AI space, with those that have had that massive amount of investment and resource, they're going to be the big winners, but actually the majority of AI companies are going to end up with nothing. Anything that's a foundational model is probably competing against what feels like infinite capital. So that might not be the best approach. But just like any company, if you are currently building out AI, you need to be thinking about defensibility, about proprietary data, about novel architecture, And where I think we're going to see so much of the AI coming out, and we have been for years, which is domain-specific applications. It's not all just about the biggest compute. The majority of AI founders that I work with are working in domain-specific areas. So they're building AI for specific applications. I've worked with medtech and bio companies, counterintelligence companies, climate change companies, climate tech companies. I don't work with companies that create climate change. I probably do in a roundabout way. Education companies. The list goes on and on. And honestly, these are all the areas that the tech bros told us that AI was going to help. Right at the beginning of OpenAI, you had Elon and Sam going around being like, yeah, this is all about solving climate change. But there are currently people actually building these solutions, not in a big, hypey way, in a very real way. Creating human-centric solutions with innovative technologies. Now, enterprise solutions for more generic functions might be a tricky sale, because this is where you are up against those big AI companies. But where there might be an opportunity is focusing on national or regional sovereignty and security, and more efficient or lower energy solutions. With most of the big tech companies going for brute force, more refined and efficient algorithms could ultimately win out. But we might have to be patient, and the question is the capital there to do that? This shift may take quite a while. So I know that we will absolutely be seeing more AI usage across industries. And we will see things happen that are going to encourage people to be building more responsible models. That's our job as consumers, as much as it is our job as founders, to make sure that we are building things that are responsible. What I say to you, if you are currently building that kind of technology, is it's all about mindful development. Real solutions for real customers, care for your customers and the users, if the customers and the users are not the same people. Think about safety, security, good education, ethical resourcing of data. We need to continue to keep calling for that. And I think that we do need to keep recognizing that AI shouldn't be driven by a few people. Distributed leadership is where it is at. So if you are in a leadership role in a business, make sure that you are being held accountable for what you do as well. And you might say that's super idealistic and how can we possibly compete? It might be the only way to compete at this point, unless you have infinite financial supplies. And also, I think you shouldn't be afraid of regulation. You should actually be a voice in it. As technologists, we should be demanding standards that keep our users safe. You should be keeping your customers protected and making sure other people across your sector have to do the same thing as well. Now, of course, if the market crashes, any startup is going to be at risk. There's going to be less investment money around, and your investors are going to want to see real revenue from real customers that you're adding real value to. So you got to keep doing what you've always had to do. Build a business with a strong value proposition for your market. Get to know them really, really well and create something that truly adds value. Now, since the beginning of AI development, there has actually been very healthy skepticism amongst the investment community that I'm aware of, that are part of my network. In the UK, you have to show proof of market before you're going to get any meaningful investment. And what's funny is that's in some ways a little bit of a silver lining, because it means that there's probably been less investment in the overhyped things here in the UK. But of course, the flip side of that is it's always very hard for early stage startups to get funding. But a real business with real impact can. Okay, now I want to move on to the founders, the people who I think are potentially at more risk. And that's those who are building frothy products off the back of hyped up technology platforms. Recently, I was talking to a founder who had collaborated with ChatGPT to build out these amazing agents that could do everything for everyone. And ChatGPT did what it does best. It over-aggrandized and told him just how amazing this was going to be. Like, these agents are gonna change the world. How? I don't know, because as soon as I asked for anything concrete, I got no answers. What are the application areas you're looking at? Any applications? Are you focusing on any in particular? Yes, there's about 100. Okay, so not focusing then. What traction do you have? None yet. I thought if I talk to you then you can introduce me to people. Okay, right, how are we gonna validate this then? Are you targeting specific people that you want me to introduce you to? Yes, people who want to do things better. Okay, that conversation went on a little longer than that. So granted, this does not sound too dissimilar to many of the conversations around we're creating AGI and it is going to change the world. Those conversations. But it's not going to fly here. Instead, if you are using agents to build solutions for specific applications, you do run some risks that you need to be aware of. No proprietary technology, no IP, like where is that intrinsic value? Now, of course, not every business needs IP, so if it's easy and quick for you to build, that means it's easy and quick for other people to build. How are you going to differentiate yourself? How are you going to have defensibility around that product? If you're using commercial platforms to build your technology, first of all, who owns that IP? Are you free to use it? If yes, what happens if those platforms disappear? Because some of these platforms are going to disappear. Now, if you can answer all of those questions and you have a great answer to all of those questions, then great, you're on your way, you're a better man than me. But if you can't, then you may be at risk. But I should say also, if you're using some of those tools to enhance the solutions you already offer to a market you know, and you're doing it in a way that is protective of their data, and you're doing it in a responsible way, then that means that it could still be a valuable thing for you to do. Which leads me on nicely to the kind of final part, or the final people I want to address, which is those founders who aren't necessarily building out any AI at all, or not of your own, but maybe you're using AI tools for efficiency. And to that I say, great, it makes a lot of sense. Why wouldn't you be using the tools that we have to create more productivity, more efficiency in your businesses? For small startups in particular, we also don't even have that question about, are you replacing jobs? Because the likelihood is you can't afford to hire anybody anyway. And there are a few ways you might want to think about that. If you're not currently using AI tools in your business, start with like boring automation, just like anything that you're doing that's a repetitive job. How might you be able to do that with AI tools? There's something called the craft cycle framework, which helps you systematically automate workflows. So look into that. I can talk about that further if you're interested. Try to create metrics. Like if you're implementing things, you're implementing it because you want it to make a difference. Like make sure you're getting that return on investment. And that might be investment of time, of energy. And I also want you to think about, this goes beyond just individual tools. This is how can you implement systems and processes, and do you need to do anything else to help implement those processes, like train other people or be very aware of your systems and processes. So you can do all of that, but whatever you do, make sure you're doing it in a responsible way, that you're being aware of all the things that I've already talked about. Specifically, people's data. You might want to be thinking about energy usage and making sure that you do things as efficiently as possible. And you want to be making sure that you have your own freedom to operate. So where the headlines are noisy, the undercurrent is somewhat more nuanced. There are more grounded approaches to implementing AI. AI isn't useless. It is going to be used across industries. And it is going to be ubiquitous. In fact, if you are using any kind of digital tools, you're going to be incredibly hard pressed to stay away from AI. I was talking to somebody the other day and I was thinking, you know how archaic it would be to talk about the World Wide Web? Oh, we're going on the interweb. The internet is a ubiquitous technology. It's something we all work with, as is like wireless connectivity. We all work with phones. We all work with digital devices. This is something that is ubiquitous, certainly in the places that we work. It's not going to be long before saying like, I use AI is going to sound as archaic as saying, I go on the World Wide Web to search for something. And I also guarantee you that you have been using AI for years, even if you don't realize that you're doing it. As for you as an individual, what can you do to protect yourself in this chaotic AI bubble? Stay informed, but also focus on the human strengths that you have. Your ability to understand nuance and context, your passions, your taste, your judgment, and your responsible, courageous leadership. I'd love to hear your thoughts on everything that I've talked about today. I apologize if it's felt like a bit of a shaggy dog story, and I know that there's many threads that have been left unpulled. That's because we are still in the messy middle, and we probably will be for a really long time. Please let me know if there's other undercurrents that you would like me to discuss. I'd like to get under those big news headlines in tech and in business to see how everyday founders, technologists, and individuals are dealing with this fast changing world. Thanks for your time. I look forward to seeing you soon. And let me know in the comments if you stayed here all the way to the end.